He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
G'day and welcome to Country Life. I'm Duncan Smith.
No mai, haere mai. Great to have your company. Ko William Ray aho. Today, we meet a grower of heritage seedlings.
And we're in the shearing shed with a shearing gang at work in the 1970s. A gem of a story from the archives.
But first, to our guest this week, who spoke to Sally Round about his career in dairy farming in Asia and Russia.
Berwick Settle is coming up for 2 decades in the international dairy industry. He spoke to me from the small Russian town Ulyanovo. He's heading into an icy winter with the Vietnamese dairy firm TH Milk, leading the development of another huge dairy operation. It's a stark contrast to his early farming life in New Zealand.
My wife and I were share milking in northern Southland at Mossburn, 1,500 cows, a marriage breakup. And I emailed a friend of mine who was working in Indonesia at that stage. He says, why don't you come up here, get away from it all? I said, that sounds like a good idea. And, 20 years later, still moving.
You first of all went to Southeast Asia. Tell us a little bit about that.
In Java, the main island of Indonesia, I was working for a company called Greenfields. When I went there, they were milking 1,200 cows on site of a volcano. We were at 1,200 meters above sea level, so the temperature at night was cool. During the day was too warm for the cows. That was my introduction to fully housed dairy operations.
Berwick went on to help set up one of the first of China's very large dairy farms. 10,000 cows with a tourism operation alongside in China's dairy farming central Ho Hot in Inner Mongolia.
It was definitely producing a lot of milk, but it was also set up as a tourist operation. So we had a 50-a-side parallel herringbone, a 60-bale rotary, a 2x8 herringbone, and a robotic milker all in the one facility. And the tourists could come and walk inside that whole facility in like a visitors gallery. So they could walk around and see all the different parlours milking and the cows coming in and out. It was the start of a company called Mengniu, Mengniu. And now that company is just massive. It's pretty much owned by the Chinese government now.
He's managed farms in Cambodia and Vietnam too, and a 35,000 cow operation outside the Chinese capital, Beijing.
All of these animals are intensively housed, so it's like what we call the TMR system, total mixed ration, or the American system, where they live in barns, pretty much their entire life. So managing heat stress is critical for the performance of animals in that hot environment. So it's a combination of spraying them with water and blowing them with air. So there's a lot of science involved around this, and different countries have developed and companies have developed good systems where when the cow comes to the feeding line, the sprinkler goes on them. They sprinkle them for about 30 seconds, and then the fan blows on for about 4.5 minutes. So that's exactly the same situation where you hop out of a swimming pool on a windy day, you cool down very quickly. We use evaporative cooling to cool the cows. If you don't get it right, production can crash, reproduction can drop down to about like 10% conceptions, and a lot of abortions, and animal health also decreases massively if the animal is under extreme heat stress.
They're not pasture fed, they are basically indoors.
Correct. They never go outside pretty much. On some farms I've been on, the animals would have an area outside of the barn. They could go sit on there just as a small exercise yard, walking yard. Go out there at nighttime if they wanted to. But the issue is that if it rains, that area can turn into a mess. So generally the animal is in a barn and never ever leaves that barn.
And what sort of cows are they? What breed?
Pretty much American Holsteins, Holstein Friesians. Yep. That, big animals, 800 kilos, way bigger than the average New Zealand dairy animal, with genetics based out of America, because in China, as it is in many other countries, it's a fluid milk market. So you pay per kilogram of milk or per litre. Whereas New Zealand is the combination, milk protein and volume.
Cleaning udders at milking time is also a much more intensive operation because of the higher density of cows and indoor living. And there are other challenges too.
The number of animals per hectare, if we looked at it, is incredibly high. So all the manure needs to be dealt with and carted outside. So you must have good systems around how you deal with your manure. That's the big one. And then the inefficiencies around production of the feed. These are large-scale integrated dairy farming operations, and many of them have their own cropping operation as well. So trying to get some sort of sustainability practices into the farming operations is very difficult. The level of legislation is quite different to New Zealand. And China, it was incredibly strict on what we could and couldn't do. And here in Russia, it's certainly not as strict as China, but we do have regulations around how we apply our manure. But they're very, very low level, very lax.
Berwick says the systems he's been working in Asia and now Russia are very different from our pastoral way of dairying, and the opportunities for New Zealand tend to be mostly in the animal husbandry area, such as calf feeding technology.
Now, we are in the process of buying milk bar teats. They've been around in New Zealand for 30 odd years, if not more. The milk bar, they have a strong market presence in Russia. We are changing over from bucket-fed calves to teat-fed calves. We've just placed an order for milk bar teats. So a lot of the animal husbandry tech out of New Zealand has flowed into the international marketplace for sure. Grass management, pastoral management is not a big E in these environments. It's just too cold. Up in China, where the dairy industry is based, the ground was frozen for over 6 months of the year. And here, it's similar environment. We're nearly freezing now.
So, of course, the farms that you're developing over there, they'll have to have good heating systems.
We have no heating systems for the cows. For sure, the people, we need good heating systems in the buildings. Yeah, triple glazing is standard. In the barns, the issue is trying to stop freezing. So the water supply is heated. Troughs have small elements in them to keep the water in the troughs from freezing. We must maintain enough ventilation so it doesn't get stuffy and too smelly and the ammonia level gets too high. The water pipes are buried well below ground, about 6 feet below ground. And everything above ground is insulated, fully insulated. And water troughs are heated. And a lot of water heating is underground water heating and milking parlours to keep those building warm. The cow barns per se are not heated.
How do you think the cow's life is in New Zealand compared to in these huge operations you've been working in overseas?
If we look at it the other way, what are the advantages of this system from an animal welfare point of view? If things are done right in these housed environments, the animals, I believe, are happy. Are they more happy if they're sitting outside on a nice sunny day with a belly full of grass? Probably not. But attention to detail, attention to cow health, cow comfort is critical in these housed dairy operations. If you get it wrong, your milk will drop instantly. So you become very aware of issues that affect cow comfort. That is a continual issue for management to get cow comfort correct. So the cows are comfortable. They for sure do not get as much freedom to roam. They have no freedom to roam, but they are comfortable. They are well looked after, and their health status is very, very good.
Berwick Settle speaking to Sally Round from the Vietnamese-owned dairy farming operation he's with in Russia.
Now to a look at what's been making headlines on the Rural News Desk this week. And first up, the government's backing a new tool to help reduce emissions. Startup company Armour of Waio is developing a wearable smart device for cows that aims to recycle nitrogen from their urine and spread it evenly around the paddock to make the most of the nutrients. While the company is hush-hush around further details at this early stage, founder Roger Johnson says it's about unlocking the nitrogen potential from livestock.
Every farm that has livestock grazing around the world has a massive nitrogen resource, but at the moment that nitrogen is only causing problems. So it's a huge resource and it's being applied to 4% of the paddock. Once you take that nitrogen, apply it across the whole paddock, it gives it to the grass in an amount that it can utilise all of it to grow, and once the grass uses it all up to grow, there's not much left to leach or emit as nitrous oxide.
The Ministry for Primary Industries has backed the prototype device that was trialled on Ngāi Tahu farming sites and studied by ag-research scientists. Modelling shows the tool could reduce nitrous oxide emissions by up to 95% and nitrate leaching by up to 93%. It's just received a $1.2 million boost from the government industry partnership AgriZero to pilot technology on more farms next year.
Speaking of cows, hopes of a $10 a kilo milk payout are under pressure. That's after prices at the global dairy trade auction dropped for a sixth consecutive run, with average prices down 2.4% to $3,768 a tonne. The important whole milk powder price, which influences farmer payout, fell 2.7% to $3,503 a tonne. Rabobank dairy analyst Emma Higgins says the drop confirms that markets are spooked by the current volume of milk supply. She says farmers will now be looking to Fonterra in coming weeks to watch what happens to the payout price.
Meanwhile, New Zealand's red meat industry is proving resilient, with export earnings climbing even as US tariffs threaten trade. The Meat Industry Association says red meat exports hit more than $700 million in September, up nearly a third on last year. Chief Executive Surma Karapiva says beef exports to North America dipped, but that was offset by growing demand from Asia and the UK. Sheep meat exports surged 42% to just over $250 million, driven by higher returns from the EU, China and the US.
There's new research which shows young people are eating more meat as older generations cut back. A survey of 1,500 New Zealanders run by Rabobank and Kiwi Harvest found the number who plan to reduce meat consumption is falling. Blake Holgate from Rabobank says fewer baby boomers are now saying they plan to cut back on meat, 22% from 30% previously. Almost a quarter of Gen Z now say they plan to eat more of the red stuff.
The number of Kiwis saying they plan to reduce red meat consumption has dropped for 3 consecutive surveys. And interestingly, when we delve into it, it's actually the younger generation, the Generation Z, that are showing they're actually looking to, over time, increase red meat consumption.
Blake Holgate says the change is likely being driven by a focus on the importance of protein.
To another source of protein, Akaroa king salmon has been recognised by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organisation. It was one of 46 organisations recognised, winning a Global Technical Recognition Award for its leadership in sustainable aquatic food systems. The Canterbury-based salmon farming business is a 100% New Zealand-owned partnership that includes Onuku Ruranga, Ngāti Porou and the Bates family. Here's Nick Mavromatis of Akaroa King Salmon.
With our feed supplier Biomar, we're working on what they call the Blue Impact Journey, focusing on how we can improve 3 key markers that we measure. One is our carbon footprint, the other is the use of circular regenerative ingredients, and the third part is the impact on wild fish stocks. So we're trying to cut that down by using things like algae oil, using things like potato protein. The world last year, they've surpassed now more than 50% of the world's supply of seafood is aquaculture. We think there's an amazing future for it, particularly in New Zealand, but you've got to do it in the right way.
Zespri has sent off its final charter shipment of kiwi fruit for the season. The Fedor ship, carrying more than 5,000 tonnes of green kiwi fruit, will be its 60th charter vessel of the season and is expected to arrive in Tokyo mid-next month. Chief Executive Jason Tabrake says this year's crop of 215 million trays of more than 770,000 tonnes of kiwi will be its largest yet, heading to 50 markets.
And just lastly, Christmas tree farmers are gearing up for their busiest time of year. Come November 24th, Pine Valley in New Plymouth will be open every day, helping families pick their tree. The owner of the 1 acre farm, Malcolm Hine, says there's more that goes into Christmas trees than people realise.
It's been pretty difficult actually because of the rain that we've had and trying to get our trees up to scratch to a certain extent, but they're starting to look a lot better now. Presently pruning them. We are gearing up for the 24th of November, which is our opening day. There's a lot of pre-season work that goes in, and it's also 24/7 when you're selling them. Lots of phone calls after hours. Like we've already had phone calls. We've had a half a dozen phone calls for people wanting to reserve their tree.
And that's your rural news for this week.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.
As shearers sharpen their blades for the summer shear, we thought we'd bring you a taste of what it was like when sheep were much more numerous in New Zealand. Back in 1972, there were 60 million sheep and wool was big business. It's a different picture now. Today, the national flock is just over a third of that, about 23 million, and wool prices have only recently strengthened to be able to cover the cost of shearing. In this story from the archives, producer Jack Perkins joined a Wairarapa shearing gang on a farm about 30 kilometres northeast of Masterton. It is 1972, don't forget. Some things have changed, and some haven't.
There's a dozen or so people inside. 4 shearers to start off with. 3 of them are Maoris, not big men but compact and well muscled. The 4th member is a European and middle-aged, a typical Kiwi type. There's a couple of girls behind the shearers, sweeping the board clean. Another collects the fleeces. 2 more are skirting at the table. There's the wool classer, and the 2 men on the press. One's an Aussie, the other a young university student. They periodically swing themselves up on the frame and tramp the fleeces down, like peasants on a wine press. The boss is outside, of course. A good boss leaves the running of the shed to the gang. But with us is Dave McPherson, a well-known Wairarapa authority on the wool industry.
Well, as soon as the bell goes, the main function of everybody is to get working like buggery, because the harder you work, the better the financial return for you and the farmer. And the shearers, they rush in and grab the first sheep and they start to shear. But the girls are busy with the broom. You've got, in a 4-stand gang, you've got 1 girl on the broom or 2 girls on the broom, depending on how fast they're going, and another one picking up, another girl picking up. So the girls with the brooms keeping all the shortcuts, the seconds and all the inferior wool out of the main fleece. And this is, if they don't do this, this can downgrade your price at the end. But they keep the floor clean, and the other girls to rush up and pick up the fleeces, start picking it up on the back, 2 back legs and folding it over the rest of the fleece so that when they get to the table they can throw it and it'll land out evenly so that the 2 girls on the table can skirt all the inferior wool outfit. That is, anything that detracts from the general appearance of it and the value. They skirt off, they take the neck, which is full of seed, and the pieces that are heavy conditioned and full of mud, or have to be, in this case, dust that they've picked up on the muster coming in. Then it is looked at by the classer. He puts it into the various grades that he's made, and then the 2 presses press it up, press it into their like types, and so the bale's up. Also, one of the presses has to double up as the sheepo, and that's the bloke who fills up the catching pens, so the shearers are never short of sheep, because the shearers are getting paid per animal.
If you're used to office hours, you can forget all about shearing as a job.
It's a 9-hour day cut up into 5 runs. The first one before breakfast is from 5 till 7, and the second one is from 8 till 10, which is an hour and 3/4. Then from 10:15 to 12 o'clock, which is another hour and 3/4. From 1 to 3, and 3:15 to 5 o'clock. And that's known as the longest run of the day. Although it's only an hour and 3/4, it's the last one and you're starting to get a wee bit tired.
Which is understandable enough when you see a good shearer in action. Charlie Peppery, as head shearer, is boss of the gang. He's responsible to the contractor and to the farmer for the quality of the work and the conduct of the gang. His movements are smooth and coordinated, like a good golfer's. but he's using more energy than a golfer would in a month of Sundays. The sweat streams down his face. Here's a description of his form from Dave McPherson.
Now here he goes, he's pulled off the handpiece and the machine, he's walking in, he's wiping his eyes and into the pen, and he's looked around and he's picked his best sheep out, because shearers are noted for this, to pick the best sheep out and leave the last in the run, because the pens don't get filled up again until they have actually emptied it. So you leave the worst ones to the end. Now he's dragged it across the board, and that's a 150-pound sheep, and he's turned on his motor on, and he's starting off at the brisket, and he'll work down the brisket on the left-hand side. He tears it open with his hand, and he'll work down so that all that, and take a fairly big belly off, so that he's not leaving anything on the fleece itself. Now he's worked down the outside of the right leg and come back up through the crutch, and he's going down now the left leg on the outside, having taken off the socks. These are the little ones at the part on the feet, and he's gone up over the tail. Now that's, if you can visualise a leg of mutton, he's gone right up to the top where the tailbone is. Now he's come from the brisket straight up the neck, round one ear. He's turned the sheep head as he brought it up, so he's holding onto the ear, and he's gone round the ear and over the top and taken the top knot off, and one ear is still covered with wool, but he's worked down the left-hand shoulder, taking off all the wool there, and now he's starting on the long blow. He's just putting in a few short ones to clear the belly. Now this long blow is right from the tail to the top of the head, and in big sheep this can be a distance of 7 feet. And he's got down now, he's done the long blow, he's done 3 quick blows up the top, and he cleared the other ear, and working down the brisket to the right foreleg, and he'll come up and he'll clear the foreleg of all the short socks that are on it, and swing around under the armpit, and now he runs down the flank of the sheep, running out onto the right hand leg, and he's now laying it over. Now this is coming down the leg of mutton from the tail down to the leg, and when he comes the last blow, the sheep will be actually going out the porthole now. He's done it, there you are, he's done it in 1:48. This will give him something around about must give him about 300 a day, 300 plus.
The main thing we're looking for in the shed at the moment, we've got a very nice line of wool, is the any dirty fleeces we're taking out completely, and we're making this into 3 lines, a fine, a medium and a coarse.
And here's that most important man, the wool classer.
We're making sure it's very well skirted, and the fleeces that are dirty, we're throwing them on the table, making sure that there's no dag or stain involved or brand, and then just rolling them up and making another line of just straight crossbred. The girls you can see skirting in front of us at the moment, they're taking off all the pieces, any dag and the neck off the fleece, and it's up to me as the classer to make sure that this job is done to the satisfaction of myself and also of the farmer.
The head rousey, short for rouseabout, is Marlene Beadle. She's been on the job for 3 years.
The girls always change on the air. They have a break on the air, they change over. There's 3 things that they do. Like there's the sweeping, picking up, and then they go on the table. And by the time they've picked up, they only do it for an hour. Some sheds work for a full run, but we like to change over on the air. It's easier on the girls.
How many days a week do you do this?
We just keep working 7 days a week, unless we get any wet days or anything like that. We just have a day off, time off.
And what are your hours of work a day?
9 hours.
You must be pretty dead at night. There must be virtually no social life. You're isolated out here in the country. Don't you find this pretty tough?
I think it's a bit like shearers. You get tired sometimes, but I think you start to get used to it after a while. And we always find that if we go out now and again, we always feel better if we've gone and got away from things, and go out for a night, perhaps once a week or something. We quite often go.
What's your ambition in doing this? Can you imagine yourself keeping on doing this for another 3 years?
No, I'm only doing it just for the money.
What does this bring you in the way of money?
Well, we get $1.57 an hour. Around $1.57. So that's quite good money for females. For girls, it's pretty good. Most jobs you get in town, just the ordinary jobs, you can only earn about $25 to $30 a week, whereas here if you go straight through, well, I mean, we're earning over $10 a day, at least $12 a day we're earning. So, I mean, it's quite a big difference, really.
I heard the same story from one of the other Rousies, a young Maori lass. She'd left an office job to join the gang.
Just casual, you know. Just can talk whenever you like and play. You know, can't do that in an office.
You make many friends in the shearing shed?
Yeah, yes. All Australian girls and a few American shearers come out too. They're all good too.
Ron Fox is studying geology at Otago University, which doesn't mean a thing as far as the gang is concerned. He's just the presser. There's an electrically operated press in this shed. It's no faster than the hand type, but it does make the work a bit easier.
When the shearers have shortened the sheet, the girls throw it on the table. It's skirted, clasped by the wool classer, and then it's put in these bins behind us and around us. From there, we take each different type of wool out, each one class for one bale, and put it in the two parts of the press. We jump the wool, compress it as much as we can.
You jump on it physically, do you?
Yeah, to press it down. Otherwise, it's so springy, so bulky, we'd only have half the weight that we should have. From there, we when we've got it pressed heavy enough by ourselves, we'll put the two boxes together, press it with the machine, sew it, so the cap and the bottom are together. We'll weigh it, brand it, so we get the actual name, number and type, stack them, and then later on a truck will come away and take them away. And our job is just to get the wool into the bales and get it away. It's our part of the job.
The other half of the pressing team is Skip. He's an Aussie.
Well, I worked on a sheep and cattle station over home in Queensland, and I'm here on a working holiday, and I just enjoy the life in the gang. You get to see the country better. Working the gang, you're always moving around, and the two different seasons, you get from North Island to South Island back again all the time, all year round.
The ganger is overall boss of the shearing gang, and the classer has control of shed operations. But the guts of any shearing gang is seldom seen inside the shed, although everybody acknowledges the importance of her job. It's the cook. In this case, it's Charlie Peppery's wife, and she spends her entire day in the kitchen of the shearers' quarters. It's not long after lunch. The dishes are still in the sink. That's one of the next jobs. There's a big chocolate cake that's just come out of the oven, an electric range in this case, although the kitchen still retains an old wood-burning stove. There's a great slab of meat on the hearth, waiting to be cut up for the evening meal. It's mutton, of course. And there's a dried, salted eel hanging up. It was caught in the local creek. Margaret Peppery's job starts early.
In most gangs, the ganger makes the early morning cup of tea, but some of them, it is really the cook's job. But if the ganger's pretty decent, he usually makes that early morning cup of tea and gets the gang up about 4:30, gives them time to have their tea and to start at the shed dead on 5. I get up and check on the chops, wash up the cups and get the table all set up for breakfast, which is dead on 7 o'clock. That gives me plenty of time to fry up my vegetables, do my eggs, which they have fried eggs every morning. 1 egg each and normally 2 chops each, and fried up vegetables from leftovers from the day before. I usually cook extra so that I know I've got plenty left over.
How many are you catering for, by the way?
I think there's 14 with myself that I'm cooking for.
Any problems in cooking for this number?
Well, not really. It's quite a good amount to cook for. It's just the same as being at home. You've just got to cook a bit of extra. You've just got to be well organised and get ahead of yourself with the meals. If you just thought of them when the meal was due, well, you just wouldn't be able to cope with it.
Now, you get meat from the farmer.
Yes, every 1,000 sheep the shearers share, the farmers are supposed to supply a mutton for every 1,000 sheep. And that's cut up by the ganger. He gets it from the meat house on the property and cuts it up and puts it all in the safe, and the chops and forequarters and the legs.
Let's have a menu for lunch and tea. Today, for instance.
Well, for lunch we had cold meat, which I had to cook yesterday, and lettuce salad, cheese and carrot grated on the lettuce, and the mayonnaise and boiled potatoes. And then for tea tonight, we usually have a roast, mashed carrots or pumpkin and 2 vegetables. And I've also got a pudding, which I had to make this morning so that I'll have my pots available for the vegetables tonight. They're finished in the sheds at 5 o'clock, and they usually stroll back, and first thing they do is have their showers and baths. The shearers usually have their showers first, and I have the tea going, and they usually sit down to tea at night about 6:15. And by the time they've had tea, it's about 6:45, and my day hasn't finished till about 7:30 by the time I get my dishes done and get the table set for the next morning. I have to have milk mixed, which is powdered, and everything for their early morning cup of tea.
It's not until evening that a shearer really becomes a human being. During the day he's a superbly functioning machine, and even at the lunch break there's little conversation. If he's not checking over his gear, he's usually relaxing in the way experience has shown him is best, flat on his back on the board. But at night there's a welcome beer at the quarters, and the blessed relief of a hot shower. Shearers first, always. And after the meal at last, tongues loosen, and the gang relaxes for a brief hour or two.
Them lager beds, really, about 15 cents for a 7 ounce.
Yeah, it's about 10 cents
robbery.
for 5. Yeah.
That's always made beer darker, put a bit more caramel in it. You darken up a little.
They put caramel in beer.
Of course they put plenty of malt extract too.
What makes a good shearer?
Well, a good shearer's got a ton of guts, a big heart. Plenty of go.
The money's good. It's handy when you're a varsity, someone like this, it helps pay for a lot of the work. You meet a hell of a lot of really good people. The gang is really, you get around the country, come back the same old gang again, it's really a smooth place to be.
For the average person who wants to knock around and look around the country, I think it's about one of the best, and it's a good healthy life.
How do you get your training?
Well, they've got shearing schools going all the time. You generally start the last week of September, go right through till February. The juniors have a fortnight shearing school, and the seniors have a week.
What do you look upon yourself as? A craftsman, an artist? What?
Well, we like to think ourselves as craftsmen in our job, professionals.
You take a pride in...
Yeah, we do. We do. Well, the boss comes along and has a look at the job and tells us if we're going too rough, we clean the job up. Well, we do it. But we can't do it if conditions are not right.
You as the ganger, what kinds of problems or what kinds of things don't you like seeing in a shed? What gives you trouble?
Well, in the first place, most contractors and most gangers don't like to see a boss in the shed. It's better if they let the shearers up to it. Well, it's understandable if they're doing a rough job, they can come in. Come in and see the man who's running the gang, if anything's going wrong. I can see their point of view too, because they're paying big money to get their sheep done, and they expect a good job.
It's a life that's on the move all the time.
It is.
Here one day, gone the next.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this? Any crunches here?
We've got to take it in our stride. Sometimes we lose. Well, we're on a good run actually. Our sheds are not far apart. We hardly lose any time. But when you've got to travel miles, you might do a run in one shed and you cut out in the morning at breakfast time. Then you spend the rest of the day travelling to the next shed.
It's okay from our point of view though, because we get to see more of the place. Yeah, I mean that's one reason why I'm here.
Oh no, but well, the main reason you're here to make money and see as much as you can.
Well, So losing that little bit of time doesn't really worry me that much.
Don't you break out and get away from it all occasionally?
Oh no, well we break out when it's too wet. Have a
Pray
day
for
off.
rain.
Well, there's Rousy's in the presses.
If you have more than, say, 2 days off, we go to town for, say, 4 days through wet sheep. We spend the first day having a few beers and good time, but after that...
You're dying to get back to the shed.
You're dying to get back to the shed. You rarely go to the pub. You don't drink at all, hardly.
That piece from the RNZ show Spectrum was first broadcast in 1972. It was presented by Jack Perkins with thanks to Ngā Taonga Sound Archives.
Hi, I'm Claire.
I'm Grant. We're at Okuia, just out of Wanganui, and at Summer Hill Seeds,
Where we farm sheep, beef and edible green, pumpkin seeds, pumpkin seed flour and pumpkin seed oil.
You're listening to Country Life
on RNZ National.
Next, we're at a small greenhouse at Poroporo in a valley in Eastern Bay of Plenty. It was late winter when producer Sally Round met up with Gemma Ostenfeld of the Eastern Field on another busy day sowing a new batch of seedlings for the spring. Gemma grows and preserves heritage seeds and sells the seedlings at farmers markets in the area.
This morning I'm going to be sowing some seeds, so I'm just going to go get them from the seed storage, which is my new to me broken chili bin, chest freezer, which is actually a really good way to store seeds because it's insulated and it's fully sealed so the rodents can't get in. So I've just got some seeds from a friend of mine who's a reputable seed grower and saver up in Northland. So I try and source my seeds all from people that I know, ideally in the area, who I know that they abide by the seed saving rules of isolation. And if I can't get from them, then I will go to the small businesses and distributors in New Zealand.
So this is in an envelope, got your address on it, Gemma Ostenfeld, the Eastfield, Poroporo.
So,
you're going to open this up?
Yes, I am. So in here we've got some sweet pea seeds, as well as some lettuce seeds. So these seeds, they're all heritage varieties, and what that means is that they've been grown within a family or group in a specific bioregion that have been passed down from generation to generation. And when they're grown in a specific bioregion, they're adapted to those local climate conditions. I try and get the oldest varieties that I can, so I try for over 100 years old. They hold the memory of all the times that they've been grown before, so they have more resistance to pests and disease and any environmental conditions like drought, all that sort of thing. We don't have that many seeds that have been in this country for centuries, apart from the Māori heritage varieties like kamu, and there's a lot of bean varieties here as well. Alright, so I'm going to prep the area so I can sow these seeds. So first I'm going to mix my seed raising mix. So this is a combination of organic compost, aged bark fines, pumice and some slow release organic fertilizer.
People can probably detect an Australian accent there. What brought you from Australia?
So I moved here about 5 years ago. I was living over in Canada, tree planting in the summer, skiing in the winter, ran out of my visas, didn't want to go home, and ended up coming here, landing in New Zealand, where I then cruised around the country, learning from different growers in different climates. Ended up on a seed saving farm where I found my passion. Came up to the Bay of Plenty where I worked at Lux Organics. Learnt all about market gardening there. Decided to move somewhere warmer, so came out to the coast where I'm now on this beautiful piece of land where there's really nice soil, lots of sun and a really good community.
Had you been interested in growing before?
Not so much. I always had an inkling for it, and I grew up with my nana gardening as well, so I think that planted the seed, and then kind of went off on my own adventures and landed in a garden.
Are you from a town or rural area originally?
I'm originally from the Gold Coast, so quite the opposite from rural. So I never had that within my family or in my surroundings, apart from when I was little with my nana. But coming to New Zealand, because it's such a big gardening culture, and you're surrounded by it, it was quite appealing in this country, and particularly because it's such a small country too. It was really amazing to travel around and learn from people and create really strong networks with growers. And then I think getting into the heritage seed saving side of things, then it opens you up to a whole bunch of new and exciting and interesting varieties. So we're just going to mix that up all nice so it's evenly distributed.
Looks beautifully rich.
It took me a long time to source the ingredients and the right recipe, but I finally landed on something that works really well for me and for my customers. So I sell this as well at the farmers market. So I'm kind of turning into a mini garden centre, trying to provide the average home gardener with the tools to be able to grow healthy food in their garden, as well as education and engagement through workshops. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So I'm going to get my tray and we're going to fill this up. There's not actually that many seed savers in New Zealand. The two main ones, they're down in the Hawke's Bay region. So I learnt from both of those places, took that knowledge, moved to a different region because I believe that we should be holding seed libraries in different areas, and that secures the seed security in the country. So if there was a major weather event like Cyclone Gabrielle that came through a few years ago, that cut off the distribution of those seeds. And then there was, say, in the 2020, when we were all locked down, there was such a high demand for seeds that those people almost sold out of a lot of their ranges. So I think the more people that are growing and saving heritage seeds and distributing them out across the country creates a more secure food system for us.
Are you sowing seeds every day at this time of year?
I try to do it just once a week, and I always try and match it up with the Maramataka of this area. So following the moon calendar, because I've learnt that sometimes if I sow at the wrong time, nothing will germinate. And I don't do anything differently, so the only thing I can put it down to is the energetics of the environment around.
It's just a seedling tray with lots of different holes. And
So
this is what the lettuce seed is going to go into?
Yes, yep. I like to sow all of my seedlings in individual pots as opposed to the 6-cell punnets that you'd usually get in the garden centres. So this helps for successional planting. So sometimes people don't want 6 cabbages at once, but maybe every 4 weeks you can get 1 cabbage and 1 or a couple of lettuces. So you can kind of really stage it out so you can get that year-round food.
Yeah, you're putting your finger in just to make a little dent in the soil.
Yeah. Seeds generally like to be sown at a depth that's the same height as the seed. So lettuce likes to be just under the surface. Okay. So every time a seed is grown, it will take on those environmental conditions from that season. If it's grown in a different soil type, it'll become adapted to that soil type plus all the different soil types that it's been grown in before. So by diversifying the environment that the seeds are grown in, it's going to take on more qualities of pest resistance, of resistance to harsh environmental conditions. So it gets stronger and stronger year after year. And sometimes it gets to a point where families can't necessarily look after those lines anymore, but they still want to keep that seed alive because it means so much to them. So they like to pass it on to a trusted grower who can continue that on.
Like you. Have you had those?
I've been passed on a few different varieties. I've had a man who came up to me and he said he's old, he's not going to last much longer, he wants to pass on his whole collection to somebody who can look after them.
And you got them?
Not yet. So I think it's one of those things it's hard to ask for. I think they come to you when the time is right.
And have you heard, say, stories around a particular vegetable that's been passed down the generations?
A lot of seeds have different stories to them, and a lot of the seeds that have come into New Zealand have been smuggled in by like people in the war, sneaking them in their socks, or a lot came over with the Dalmatian gum diggers as well. So they originate in other countries and then they come here and they've got these amazing stories. Each of them are so different, and then they've been put in the hands of other people here who have continued those ones on. Okay, so I've got all the seeds on my tray, my little sow tray. And then what I'll do is I'll get like a toothpick and then I will drop the seeds into each cell where I've made the little dent. So I will put 2 seeds in each cell, and this just guarantees that at least one will germinate. Lettuce also likes to be sown with friends, so they do better when there's more than one next to each other. So I'll just kind of go through, do all that. It's quite finicky, but you can get really fast at it.
Do you know much about the particular history of these seeds that you're popping in?
These particular ones I do not know at this moment. Before I sell them, I make sure that I go into a deep dive of where they originate from. It might be a plant breeder in the 1800s, or generally they go back to when they first appeared in seed catalogues, but they can originate way back before then because there's not really records of them then. Okay, so I'm going to put soil over the top of these seeds. So I've got just an old composting sieve that I will put the seed raising mix on top and then shake it, and that will give a nice fine grade seed mix to cover the top of the lettuce here. So as a seed saver myself, I grow the amount of plants that I need to keep the genetic diversity, which is generally about 80 plants. So with that amount of plants, the bees are cross-pollinating all of the pollen within those plants and transferring the DNA within those plants. So it's preserving that genetic makeup in the plant. So the more plants you have, the more genetically diverse they'll be. In home gardeners situations, you might not be able to have 80 plants, so I still encourage people to save seeds from a few plants. The more plants, the better. I'm gonna label them, and then I can tell at a young age when they've got just their first, or their first leaves, if they're germinating well, and then if they're not, I'll make adjustments going forward. So as a seed saver, we are required to meet the international germination standards. So that is on average about 80%, but it differs from different crops. So I have to make sure that my seeds are germinating at that rate before I sell them to people.
So there is an international standard that you have to meet?
Yeah. So everywhere that you're buying seeds, they should be germination testing their seeds every 6 months to a year. So I've just had my first big year of seed saving last season, and I'm just in the process of germination testing all of them. Some of them didn't do so well. Some of them did really well. So I will keep the seeds that haven't done so well, and I'll use them in the nursery so they won't go wasted, and then I can make the ones that have done really well available for people.
Gemma Ostenfeld of the Eastern Field talking to Sally Round. She's on the lookout for a new location to lease or collaborate on in the Bay of Plenty, so she can continue to grow, preserve and share heritage seeds and seedlings with the community. If you can help, email country@rnz.co.nz and we can pass on her details.
And that's it for this episode of Country Life. Do let us know your feedback by emailing that address. Here it is again, country@rnz.co.nz. Head to our show notes for more on the stories you've heard today, or to rnz.co.nz/Country Life.
Click follow on your app if you don't want to miss an episode of Country Life, and we'd love you to give us a plug on social media or tell a friend about the show. Click the share button in your app to send this episode to a friend.
The stories in this episode were produced and presented by Sally Round and Jack Perkins. Thanks also to producers Justin Gregory and Janina Schwaneker. In the studio production team today, David Knowles and Phil Benge.
Catch you next time.
Ka kite.